The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure will come to order. Without objection, I would ask unanimous consent to limit member questions to 3 minutes each to allow maximum member participation. And I also will be foregoing my questions. So with that, I recognize myself for an opening statement, and I want to thank you, Secretary Duffy, Sean, for being here today to discuss the Department of Transportation's policies or programs and fiscal year 2026 budget request. You have had an extremely busy 6 months, and I appreciate you coming in to answer members of Congress's questions. Following the tragic aviation accidents in the recent months and years of underinvestment in FAA's capital budget, this committee responded by providing the FAA with a $12.5 billion down payment to modernize air traffic control systems as part of the reconciliation bill. This funding will allow the administration to immediately get to work to replace critical telecommunications infrastructure and radar systems, invest in runway safety and airport surveillance projects, and replace antiquated air traffic control facilities. I appreciate your work on the administration's brand new air traffic control system plan, and I look forward to working with you and the administration to ensure this funding supports the plan's goals and helps deliver a state-of-the-art ATC system. We also recently marked the 1-year anniversary of FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024 being signed into law. This bipartisan law significantly advances the aviation industry through safety reforms, requirements for the FAA to plan for modernizing the ATC system, improvements to address workforce challenges, increased funding for airports across the country, improvements to the passenger experience, and the inclusion of the very first ever general aviation title. I look forward to working with you, Secretary Duffy, so that this law is implemented in a way that ensures America's aviation system remains the gold standard for the world. Additionally, the committee is already working on the next surface transportation bill, which we plan to consider before the end of the year. The current authorization, which is set to expire next September, has plagued infrastructure planning with delays, cost increases, and administrative confusion. The committee has a prime opportunity to focus on core infrastructure that moves people and goods safely and efficiently, cut red tape and accelerate project delivery, ensure that states have the flexibility that they need to address their priorities, and shore up the bankrupt Highway Trust Fund. We must maintain the user pays principle and offer solutions for putting the Highway Trust Fund on a more sustainable fiscal path. I look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address the trust fund's funding challenges. Simply put, we have to make America build again. And with that, I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary, for, again, being here with us today, and I look forward to hearing your testimony and a productive hearing. With that, I recognize Rick for his opening statement.
This committee is a workhorse committee. We're not a showhorse committee. It has a history, which I appreciate Chair Graves continuing, of enacting legislation to fund critical transportation and infrastructure projects to create jobs, working across administrations to get these investments to our constituents. And I certainly want to continue that partnership. There's a lot of critical work ahead of us to modernize the air traffic control infrastructure and boost controller staffing, to improve rail safety, to upgrade roads, bridges, airports, and ports, and transform how we move people and goods safely through communities and across the country. We have a great opportunity to work together on job-creating infrastructure investments this Congress, including a surface transportation authorization bill. But to do any of that work, we do have to rise above the chaos. Delaying grants authorized in statute or conditioning transportation funding on things that don't have to do with transportation won't get us to yes. DOT is currently reviewing 1,300 approved grants, and your 26 budget request seeks to cancel $5.7 billion in EV charging grants. So I urge you to get on with the review of the remainder of these grants because we are leaving construction jobs on the table without these grants going out the door. Holding up these grants stalls badly needed job-creating infrastructure investments, and we need to get them going on that. Firing federal workers who oversee infrastructure or carry out critical safety missions won't get us to yes. More than 4,100 DOT employees have left the department, and several agencies in the department, including FHWA, FTA, and NHTSA have seen reductions of more than 25%. So I urge you to consider how you're going to expedite project delivery and advance safety with the decimated workforce. Privatizing air traffic control won't get us a yes. The 24 FAA reauthorization for airports provides a blueprint to make long overdue investment in ATC infrastructure. My priorities are increasing the FAA's ATC and aviation safety workforce to meet growing airspace demand, expediting the deployment of critical runway safety technology, and replacing outdated ATC infrastructure, notably telecommunications, which are the nervous system of the ATC network. In the wake of the tragic Potomac mid-air collision and trend of near misses, we have to get it right. Now that Congress has provided DOT $12.5 billion to launch this mission, we need specifics on DOT's plan to improve our ATC system and ensure the safety of the flying public. And cutting off critical safety investments won't get us a yes. We have a national epidemic of preventable highway deaths. There's a clear federal interest for us investing in the infrastructure to ensure the safety of all modes of travel, including cars, trucks, bikes, shared use paths, and sidewalks. Congress has enacted programs that make these projects specifically eligible for federal funding, and unilateral actions by DOT to halt legally dedicated funding and reaching back to already awarded grants will make the traveling public less safe. The DOT's job is to implement the laws that Congress has negotiated and passed, and it's every member of this committee's job to hold DOT accountable to that standard, regardless of party in power, and regardless of how much we like the secretary or not. And I do want to say I do like the secretary, but he hears from me a lot. So far, this administration has played a little fast and loose with the division of responsibility between the legislative and executive branches and has given deference to executive orders, even if Congress has already passed a law with a very different idea. So you received a lot of letters and inquiries from many members on this committee. I certainly collect a longer list of inquiries today, and I urge you to respond to each of these requests in a timely manner. I do want to thank you in advance for keeping us informed of the department's actions so that we can represent our constituents, solve transportation problems, and improve safety. I look forward to your remarks in today's discussion. Before I move on, I do want to yield the remainder of my time to Representative Chuy Garcia for a brief statement.
Thank you, Ranking Member Larsen, for yielding so that I can express my support for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. This committee regularly considers and reauthorizes the DBE program, most recently in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024. This program combats intentional discrimination and ensures that women-owned and minority-owned businesses have a fair chance to compete for the transportation and infrastructure contracts. The committee has also collected statistical and qualitative evidence of discrimination faced by women and minorities in their attempts to establish, grow, and operate construction businesses and bid for highway, transit, and airport projects across the country. I've personally heard from firms across Chicagoland, including Ms. Deesh, who said, the DBE program creates opportunities for my company to pursue a piece of the project that would typically be too large for my company to pursue as a whole. Ms. Weiss said, the DBE program has brought me into the projects and partnership that literally keep my lights on. And Mr. Castro said, the DBE program has given our firm an incredible opportunity to work the engineering space on high-profile projects in our community. End of quotes. As we prepare for the surface bill, the committee has received over 100 submissions supporting the continuation of this program and ensuring businesses in our districts are not shut out of the construction contracting opportunities. I ask unanimous consent to insert these letters into the hearing record.
Without objection.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Yield back.
So now, again, I want to welcome our witness, Secretary Duffy. And again, thank you for being here. I don't have to explain the lights to you, and let's all be mindful of the time constraints that we have. As your written testimony has been made part of the record, the committee asks that you try to keep your oral remarks to 5 minutes. So with that, Mr. Secretary, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larsen, members of the committee, thank you for having me today to testify before this great body. My aim over the course of this hearing is to provide you a sense of how building big, beautiful infrastructure is at the top of President Trump's priorities and how we can all work together in a bipartisan effort. And I would just note that for 9 years I sat where you sat, and I would tell you it's much more fun to sit where you're at than where I'm at. But it's good to be here with you all. I took office nearly 6 months ago, and in my first full day on the job, we experienced a sobering reminder of why the department's top priority is and always must be safety. The 67 lives lost by a mid-air collision of an Army helicopter and a commercial flight over the Potomac was a stark reminder of what's at stake in our most fundamental mission at the Department of Transportation. This tragic episode is also why the construction of a brand new air traffic control system is at the top of our agenda as we get America building again. I want to thank you all for passing one big, beautiful bill, the $12.5 billion, which is a down payment for this build. I know all of you did not vote for the big, beautiful bill, but I believe this portion, the $12.5 billion, I think we would have had unanimous support throughout the committee because you know probably better than anyone else how important our air traffic control infrastructure is, more so than probably anyone else in the country. And so, though everyone didn't vote, I appreciate everyone's support for what we're trying to do. In May, I unveiled a 3 to 4 year plan to execute a complete overhaul of this outdated system. And let's be clear, flying is safe. I fly out of Newark all the time. It's now my most used airport. And we saw glitches in the system a few months ago in the TRACON in Philadelphia that impacts the Newark airspace. And those have exposed some issues within the system as a whole. Our job is to keep air travel safe, which is why I've dedicated my tenure to delivering an all-new a brand new air traffic control system, state-of-the-art, gold-plated, best in the world. Our goal is to make air travel not just safer, but also more efficient with more commercial flights, more drones, more air taxis, and an ever-expanding commercial airspace as well. This is the time, if we're going to be able to meet all those needs, to rebuild this system. Our department has also moved swiftly to streamline the hiring process for new air traffic controllers. You all know we're 3,000 controllers short. And so in May, we launched a spring initiative to supercharge our controller fleet with lucrative bonuses to controllers who are eligible for retirement. We're asking, they're the most experienced too, by the way, we're asking them to stay longer. We're giving them a 20% upfront cash bonus to stay beyond their eligible date of retirement to try to fill this gap. We have already cut months off the hiring pipeline as we're enrolling new people into the FAA Academy in Oklahoma City. This is not, and we're probably going to talk about this, there's not one silver bullet to shoot on air traffic control. We have to take all of these multiple steps to move as quickly as possible to get more young people into the business of air traffic control and keep more of those experienced controllers on the payroll. And as you know, as a graduate of the academy comes out, they just don't go into a tower and not certified. It takes time to certify in the different airspaces across the country. So I ask for your patience, but also we have some money in the big, beautiful bill to help with that. We're hoping in 2026 to get to 2,500 new controllers out of the academy and start their certification process. Recent changes at Newark Liberty International Airport have demonstrated the effectiveness of our proposal to fix the aging system. And just real quick, the runway was completed almost 2 weeks before schedule. One of our problems is that we have companies that we deal with at mid-management level. I'll just say the DoD gets the top level management. They're the first project on the docket for many of these companies. We are now getting CEO engagement. Verizon helped us. They laid a fiber line between the Philly TRACON and N90 within a month. We took another month and tested that line. So in 2 months after you saw what happened in Newark, we had the new line up and running, alleviating those issues we had with telecom. And I think that's just, I know some of you have asked, can the FAA do this? We can, and I think this is a great example of how we're thinking about and engaging corporate America differently to accomplish the goals that you're going to set for us. I know I'm out of time, and we don't have a lot of time today. I know we're going to talk about surface reauthorization. I'm happy to have a conversation about that as we hopefully together in a bipartisan fashion, come up with a plan for America on how we rebuild this infrastructure. I appreciate the time of the committee, and I look forward to your questions. And with that, I don't know if I get to yield back as a witness or not, but I yield back.
Rick Crawford, you're up.
Great to see you back here. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I think it's not lost on us the baptism by fire that you underwent on your first day on the job, and I think you've just done a fantastic job. I want to talk real quick about a couple of things I know that you're attuned to, something I've been working on for quite some time. It has to do with truck parking. It's been a big issue for the trucking industry, our interstate system, and previous administration not authorizing that issue. We need ample and safe locations for truck drivers to be able to rest, and we need to start looking for how to redirect funding for this. IJA provided $7.5 billion for EV charging infrastructure projects, and very little results to show for that. So our nation was not and still not at a point where rapid rollouts of charging infrastructure is a pressing issue. In contrast, our trucking industry is certainly not in a position where that transitioning to electrification is a priority, but we do need parking. And so that said, I was happy to see the announcement by the administration of a commitment of $275 million directed to truck parking. However, I believe redirecting funding that was meant for EV infrastructure to support truck parking is actually a step in the right direction. Can you talk about that a little bit? What are the efforts within the agency to explore redirecting EV infrastructure as it applies to
First,
truck
regarding
parking?
truck parking, we saw in COVID how important our truckers are. And so there's two components of this. One, it's the quality of life for our truckers, but also it's a safety issue. We have our trucks parking on on-ramps, off-ramps, in any location they can find. And I think it's important for us to think through how do we provide more truck parking to provide safety for the truckers, but also the other traveling public. Again, a big grant went to Florida, but we are going to continue to focus on the highest needs around the country where we can deploy grants to provide additional truck parking, again, safety and quality of life for the trucker.
Excellent. FY 2020 NDAA, Congress passed the Transit Infrastructure Vehicle Security Act, and our intent was clear in that legislation. That was to prohibit U.S. taxpayer dollars from being used to purchase buses and passenger rail cars from Chinese state-owned entities or supported companies. TIVSA was a necessary step to protect national security, strengthen American manufacturing, and prevent market-distorting Chinese entities from undercutting U.S. transit supply chains. Companies like BYD and RIDE are attempting to exploit the law now through deceptive affiliate creation designed to evade TIVSA's restrictions. I've been working with Representative Khanna on the Stop China Act to strengthen TIVSA, but in the meantime, it's critical that the department implement existing law in full alignment with congressional intent. Can you talk about what your commitment looks like in terms of implementing TIVSA consistent with congressional intent and making sure companies like BYD and RIDE are not permitted to circumvent the law?
Just real quick, I know we had our grants for no and low emission buses. We're getting a lot of communities that have reached out to us that they're telling us that the no emission doesn't work. They want more low emission options. We're going to work with them on that, but I believe in Buy America. And my good friend Tammy Baldwin, Democrat senator from my great state, the greatest state maybe, Wisconsin, is hard on this, and I would agree with her assessment that we do have to make sure that at all costs that these products are built in America, and we have to get around the gimmicks.
Thanks, Secretary. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So we chatted a little bit last week on the phone about the last issue you had brought up, but I want to ask you about the outstanding grants. So this morning you announced, the Secretary Department announced another 415 grants that you have cleared so that local governments, state governments, and so on can negotiate and move forward on getting these dollars obligated. So you're about 1,900 cleared out of 3,200 grants cleared, and I appreciate that. It's always, what have you done for me lately? And so there's still another 1,300 grants out there. And these are grants that are going to be, implemented on the ground, building projects, creating local jobs in construction. Do you have a specific timeline to finish the review of the remaining 1,300 grants so that communities can get on with job creation?
I appreciate the question. My hope is that in late summer, early fall, we can complete that review. And There's a lot of questions on this. Can I just have 20 seconds to say that we have been left 3,200 grants. That is a historic number from the last administration. I know you all want your grants, but I don't think everyone recognizes the workload that was left to us. There was announcements without the work done to do grant agreements. We are working through it, and I would just note for the committee that at the first quarter of every year of the last administration versus this quarter, we are getting more grants completed and out the door. But I know that's not enough for everybody. Everyone wants their grants right now, and so we are working diligently to do that as quickly as possible.
Well, we're going to certainly keep pushing that. There's 3 in my district that were part of this new tranche, and looking forward to the rest of mine in my district. And so I'll speak for me, but I'm sure everyone else has the same view about the grants, including the Skagit Transit Maintenance and Operation Facility. Still waiting on that one. I'll ask a second question quickly here, just about roadway safety. I argue it is a federal interest to invest in sidewalk and bike paths because we have a roadway death epidemic in this country. 20% of those roadway deaths involve a bike, someone on a bike or someone walking. We need to separate those folks from the cars and trucks so that the folks driving cars and trucks know that they are themselves separated from bikes and ped. That's why there's a federal interest in decreasing the number of these roadway deaths as much as possible. So I'm going to make that argument as we move through surface transportation to ensure that we're funding these safe streets for all grants, which you're moving forward on, which I appreciate, but those are planning grants, and then we need to implement those and fund these local projects so that people have safe places to walk. Cars and trucks know that those people won't be on the roads using the road as a sidewalk, but actually using a sidewalk as a sidewalk.
I would welcome further conversation. I think there's some places where you are right, we need separation, but in other places I think we're actually commingling automobile traffic with bikes and pedestrians, and that it can also be a danger as well, and I think there's a balance to how we do this. There's also a congestion issue that comes up as well when we convert traffic lanes to bike lanes, but I'm obviously open to that conversation and implementing the will of the Congress.
Appreciate that.